What's up, Epic 7? Welcome to this week's Hall of Trials video. This week, we will be facing off against the rampaging Astromancer Elena. Now, much like every week of Hall of Trials, Smilegate is using this as a marketing ploy to sell you the new units, but this week, it's actually working. This week, Rinak is the best unit for Hall of Trials. If you have Rinak, congratulations, you probably just got your Dagger Sakar banged out and are walking away with a pretty high score. If you don't have Rinak, hey, there's always next time. But let's get into this team and walk you through what you need to do. There are several things that you need to set up proper in this team to get it to work out correctly, but once you get it lined up, it is beautiful. So this is going to be our basic team. The rules of the fight are you need to have a thief hero in the back row. The thief hero is going to be our Rinak. She'll be chilling out in the back. The other rule is that you cannot have any fire heroes on the team. And that's important because Rinak's going to want to be joined by 3 speed imprints. Now, you can use any speed imprint you want except for fire ones. So no Surin and no Shuri. And that's unfortunate because those are plus 14 speed imprints we don't have access to. So these are our fastest options. Now, I know you might be thinking, hey, what about Wanderer Silk? The problem with Wanderer Silk is she only gives a speed imprint to the top and front spots, doesn't impact Rinak. So we're going to be running Sid for our 10 speed imprint. We're going to be running Watcher Shuri for a 10 speed imprint. And I'm going to be watching Vildred for a 12 speed imprint. Now, if you don't have Vildred or you don't have a speed imprint maxed out, just use one of the other hosts of speed imprints. I'll put up on the screen a list of all of the viable speed imprints that you can use. Just remember, if you use somebody who is, say, 4 speeds slower than Vildred, you're going to need to make your Rinak 4 speed faster to make up for the loss of the speed imprint. As for how the speed imprints are built, they aren't. It doesn't matter. In fact, take their helmets off so that they die instantly. You don't want them to even be on the board. They will mess up the speed tuning. They're just there to pack a speed imprint. It's very reminiscent of how we run Rift. So don't worry about artifacts either. Even though my Vildred is wearing an attack boosting artifact, it doesn't matter. Once the unit dies, the artifact's effect goes away with the unit. The only thing that sticks around after a unit dies is the imprint. Now, one exception I've made is Watcher Shuri because his S3 hits pretty hard, and I wanted him to squeeze a shot off. But make sure, if you're going to do this, that you do not have his number 2 EE. Because his number 2 EE will give him skill nullifier, and that will let him survive an extra round, which can mess up the speed tuning of the entire fight. So just take it off. If you're running the number 2 EE, just take it off. It's only a speed imprint. There's no stats in it. It doesn't matter. And as for the S3 EE, it doesn't. None of the E's. None of them do anything. So just don't even worry about the EEs. Just make sure if you have the number 2 on, you take it off. I'm putting them on the strawberry cake just to squeeze a little bit more juice out of this guy when he fires his shot. It really isn't that big of a deal. Just trying to get this tuned properly. So this is how I've built him. And now let's talk about Rinak. Rinak, you do need to build a very specific way, and it's not the easiest build in the world. So first, rule number 1 is she needs to be on a lifesteal set. Once she's on a lifesteal set, the next rule is she needs to be 235 speed or faster. If you are slower than 235 speed, it probably isn't going to clear the final stage, and that's going to lower the amount of points you'll get. You will still get enough points to bang out your Dagger Sakar and all that jazz. Even if you're running her at 220 speed, you will still have enough points to bang it out, but getting her to 235 will allow you to access that final break phase to get those super, super high points. Other than speed and lifesteal set, nothing else really matters. Well, a couple things kind of matter. First of all, you want to have her health at least 950 by 10k. Or there and abouts. I'm doing 943 by 11k. That works out fine. You want to be careful about making her too squishy because the very last phase when Elena drops her bomb hits really hard and you don't want your Rinak to die. Worst thing in the world is doing a perfect run and then having your Rinak explode like a ripe tomato in the last fight. So make sure she's got a little bit of bulk. I wouldn't go below 10,500 health and below 930 defense. I think that's probably about the absolute minimum. You can play around with it, but definitely, especially if you're going to run Torrent set for that extra damage, be very, very careful about her bulk. Other than that, just stack attack. I know she's a speed scaler. I know it says damage is based on the Damage is proportional to speed. Attack is a more valuable damage stat to the damage equation than speed ever is, even on speed scalars. The speed is nice, but attack is always better. So stack her attack as much as you can get, but try to keep her speed above 235. The best in-slot artifact is Cruel Mischief. It gives a 40% damage or attack boost to her. I know you're probably thinking, but why not use Strawberry Cake or one of those damage boosting artifacts? Shouldn't they always be better? In normal world, yes. But in Hall of Trials especially, and you'll notice it in Rift as well, there are a lot of things that give you increased percent damage. And damage boosts are multiplicative, whereas stat boosts are additive. And what I mean by that is you take that 40% attack, you apply it to her attack, and that adds directly into the damage equation. You get maximum benefit out of it. Whereas things that say they boost damage, they get watered down by other things that boost damage. They start to average together, and you get less and less of an impact out of them. So in this situation, you're going to find an attack booster is significantly better than a damage booster for this fight. But if you don't have Cruel Mischief or don't have it leveled up, then yeah, by all means, slap Strawberry Cake or Our Beautiful Seasons or heck, even Symbol of Unity. Just squeeze as much damage out as you can. And that's it, guys. That is the entire thing. The Torrent set is not necessary. It's just there to min-max damage. The attack is not necessary. It's just there to min-max damage. But what is necessary is the speed tuning and lifesteal. And that's it. Now let's get into this fight. I'm going to explain how this goes every step of the way because most of it is pretty straightforward, but there are one or two spots where you will need to do things to max out and be successful. Let's jump in. At the start of the fight, Rinak's going to drop her Big Bang attack. Anybody not wearing a safety helmet is going to die. Rip green units. But our Watcher stayed alive because he was wearing a helmet. Okay, there's a couple of rules to how this fight works. First rule. Rule number 1. If you are wearing a debuff that is 2 turns or more, then you S1. If you're wearing a 1-turn debuff or no debuff, then rule number 2 applies. And rule number 2 is the attack order is S3 into S2 into S1. That's going to carry us through 90% of the fight. There's just a couple exceptions. We will get to that. But we are wearing a 2-turn debuff, so rule 1 applies. We use the S1 skill. That gives us an extra turn, which cycles off the debuff. Now we're going to go into rule number 2, because we're not wearing any debuffs, and that rule is S3, S2, S1. So we'll start out with the S3. That'll take us into the S2 and the S1, but at this point, the cooldowns are set in such a way that we can actually trust the AI to do it for us. So we're just going to press auto for a few minutes. Now, we're going to let the auto run until we get down to about 45% health. At 45% health, Elena's going to do her special skill that gives rage to the front row units. Nobody can debuff us until the front row units have rage, and that's the reason that we're going to stop at 45% so we can pay attention, because debuffs are where we have to go back to rule 1 and use our S1 skill. So we're down to 65%, 60%. Ouch. Ouch. $55. $50. The lifesteal set's keeping Rock healthy. I'm going to turn auto off because we're at 45%, and that's where Elena's going to use her skill. Right there it is. She applies the rage buff to the guys in the front, and now they can debuff. But I'm not debuffed yet, so the rules still apply. So we could go back on full auto, but I'm just going to pump the auto button because I get distracted easy, and you don't want to miss it. If you use the wrong skill when you're wearing a debuff, it'll brick your whole run. So we're just going to turn it on, then off to move our skills forward. Still no debuffs, so we can still pump the auto button. Down to 35%, down to 30%. $25. 20%. 15%. Okay, here it comes. There we go. Look at that. We have got a debuff now, a 2-turn debuff, which means we have to go back to rule number 1, which is using our S1 skill. Now, something to look at is the other thing you need to consider is induction into the break phase. You'll notice we are at 15% health, so we've got 3 hits left. You want to enter the brake phase with your S2. In a perfect world, you go from 10% to 5% with your S3, and from 5% to brake phase with your S2. So if we were at 10% here already, if we hit Elena again, we kind of screw up that rotation, right? We knock it down to 5%. So what you would want to do is S1 one of the front mobs. That won't lower the bar, and then you could S3, S2 to enter the brake phase. But we do need one more hit to get us to 10%, so in this case, we will S1 Elena, taking her from 15% to 10%. And now we are good to enter the brake phase. 10% to 5% with the S3. And 5% to brake phase with the S2. And then we can just press auto again. Now we're in the brake phase, just watch it run, but we need to stop it before we get to the end. Because not only is there a proper way to enter the brake phase, there's a proper way to exit the brake phase. So let's watch the damage we do and see how close we can get. We need to stop it right before it ends. 65%. 78. 91. Okay, I'm going to turn it off here on this last hit because this hit gives us an extra turn. Extra turn lets us cheat a little bit here. Although we have finished the HP bar, because we procced an extra turn, we're kind of in this limbo where we're kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the brake phase, and it gives us one free extra attack. You want to use your S1 skill. If you leave it on auto, she'll use her S2, which doesn't do as much damage and doesn't set us up for the perfect rotation in the next phase. So we're just going to use the S1 skill here to get maximum score. That gets us up to 14.6 million out of the first brake phase. Once again, Elena's going to slam us with some attacks, put heal block on us, and the phase starts again. Back to the rules. Rule number 1, if we're wearing a 2-turn debuff, we S1. There's a 2-turn debuff, so we use our S1 skill. Now that the debuff's gone, we go back to rule 2, which is always use skill 3 into skill 2 into skill 1. We'll start out with skill 3. We can't press auto. The stupid AI would use skill 2. So we use skill 3. And now we can press auto again, and we can just enjoy the show until we get around 45% health. That's where Elena's going to do her skill again, and where we have to start worrying about debuffs. Down to 70%. $55, $50, $45. We'll turn auto off because this is about the time where Elena's going to do her mojo. There we go. She puts the rage buff on the frontline units. And now we have to worry about debuffs. We're not debuffed yet, though, so we'll just start to slow pump the auto button. There's 40. 35. 30. $25. 20. 15. Okay, we're wearing some debuffs. Okay, just like before, we want to make sure we enter the brake phase with the S3 into the S2. We're at 15%, so there's no reason to S1 the adds to protect the bar. If this was at 10%, we need to S1 an add, but since it's at 15, we can S1 Elena. And now we can S3 into the S2, which will enter us into brake phase. So there's the S3. And at this point, we can legit just hit auto again, because this gives us the perfect induction into the brake phase. The S1, we're at 21 million points. And we just got to watch the show and be ready to stop it before we exit the brake phase, because we want to exit properly. 52%. Okay, we'll turn auto off for this last hit. This will get us up to 100%. And there we are. Once again, we're 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the break phase. We can do our last S1 hit, not an S2. Use your S1 here. That exits the break phase at 29.8 million. Now, you might notice your scores vary a little bit. That's because of a mechanic called Crushing Blow. You'll notice sometimes the white letters are small on the damage, and sometimes the white letters are big and puffy on the damage. That's because of a mechanic called Crushing Blow, where you can hit extra hard with a non-crit skill. Most of us don't even know it exists because we're all used to critting. Now, something to pay attention to is check out my Rinak's health. See how low it is? If I had 1,000 less health, I would be on death's door. So you really want to make sure you stay above that 10k health range, especially if your defense is low. Don't tinker around with her EHP too much, or she can take a dirt nap from that hit. We're kind of almost at the edge of how tanky we can be. So make sure your HP and your defense are strong enough to survive this hit. Once again, we are back into the rotation of it is a 2-turn debuff, so we use our S1 skill. Now this phase does have a little bit of tuning if you are slow. If you're running really fast, it runs just like any other stage. I think if you're 244, 245 speed, you don't really have to think that much. But if you're running slower like me at 235 speed, there's one thing you have to do to make sure you stay ahead of the CR. We'll get into that when that happens. For right now, we're going to S1. And now we go back to rule number 2, which is we S3 into the S2. We'll turn on auto until we get to that 45% health mark. And wait for Elena to put rage on everybody. %, 65, 60. $50, 45. We're going to turn it off at 45%. She does her special skill, giving rage buff, and now we have eaten some blocks early, right? It's 45%. We're already wearing a block. So rule number 1, we use the S1 skill. Then we go back to the S3, S2. So we're going to use the S3. And then the S2. Down to 30%. S1. Okay, here we go. So now we eat a block. This is where you've got to be careful. Every time you hit Elena, she CR pushes a little bit, and we need to make sure that we cut Elena. So right now, she is at 20% on the CR bar. And if you are not fast enough to cut and you CR push her too much, it's a disaster. If you are 245 speed and faster, you can just play this like normal. But if you're running slower, you'll have to play this game. So first of all, we've got a debuff. So let's S1 to get rid of the debuff. Takes us down to 20. See how Elena CR pushed a little bit? If we S3, S2, Elena's going to push so much we will never cut for that last hit. So instead of S3, S2, we're going to S1 again, taking her to 15%, and hopefully we cut. Woo! It was close, guys. It was close, but it does cut. And there really is no speed RNG for this final phase, because she starts at 0 CR and then pushes up based on her speed for the final phase. So 235 speed works. I have not tried 234. It's close. That 1 speed difference might push you over the line. You will have to test it on your own. I just didn't have the gear to get exactly 234 speed, but 235 speed works. So once again, we are wearing a 2-turn debuff. Rule number 1 applies. So we S1 Elena to take her down to 10%. And then we S3 Elena, and that takes us into the break phase, and we can press full auto. And there we go into the final break phase at 33 million points, 36 million points. And remember, we want to stop it at the very end to use our S1 skill, because I believe it does hit harder than her S2. There's 41 million. 41.6. 45. Last hit. We're turning off auto for the last hit. 45.7 million, and we do the S1 for our final hit, taking us up to 46 million on the nose, plus or minus 82,000. So there you go, guys. Extinct. And how did we do on our score? 46 million. Pow. Number 15. Now, if you really, really want to go for the super high score, you want to play it the way the developers intended and use Soul Weavers to push the score even higher. But if you're just looking for a fun little cheese way to beat it, there you go. It is straightforward and it does not fail as long as you do the attacks in order and as long as you respect the speed tuning. If you're 245 speed and faster, it's a little bit easier, but on that last phase, that double S1 lets us cheat it down to 232 speed to make it more accessible. And for those of you who want to do this and can't quite get that 235 speed and faster, there is one other thing you can do. One other way to cheat it. On your Rinak, drop the Hall of Trials artifact, show common artifacts, and change it out to, you guys are going to love this, Ranon's Memorandum. 2% more speed after attacking can stack up to 10 times. That's up to 20%. I mean, mine's only level 24, so it's 18%. This will let you go as slow as like 205, 210 speed and pull this off. Now, you lose the significant attack. 40% attack is a shit ton of a damage. But this will let you do it with the most free-to-play lifesteal sets out there. You're not going to get 40 million. You're probably not going to get 30 million, but you're easily going to get into the mid-20 million range, and that will let you bang out a score with this team pretty easily. That will secure you easily a top 10%, probably a top 5% score range, maybe even higher. So if you want to do this Rinak cheese, that is an accessible way to do it. Let's try it. Man, that's so much attack lost. 221 speed, right? Okay, we're going to try this with Ranon's Memorandum and see how it cleans up the speed. Look how beautifully we cut here, guys. Look how stable and safe this is with Ranon's on. There was no RNG. I didn't have to play games about using this one hit or the other hit. It just worked. And let's go ahead and finish it out and see what our score is. That really does say almost 40 million there, doesn't it? And much less RNG. I hope this video has helped you guys out. If you have any questions, ask them in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and you guys have a great rest of your week. Take care, everybody.